Tammy. It occurred to me a little while ago to actually address a frequent concern with many people with all this talk I've been doing about addiction and histamine. I thought it would be really a good idea to speak about sugar and the way so many people are concerned with their consumption. They feel like they have no willpower, that they have what they call is a sugar addiction. And this is a growing problem. It's a frequent problem for so many people. And interestingly enough, it isn't any different than substance abuse or alcoholism or smoking. It's just another manifestation. It's just showing up in a different form, and it's a different substance. There's a lot of talk these days about the inclusion of refined sugars and carbohydrates into the diet. The refining process does alter the chemistry. There we go again. It alters the chemistry of the sugar of the food, and subsequently has different effects on different people. And depending on your specific genomic structure, you're going to potentially manifest it, find that you need it. There again, it's not a weakness or a lack of willpower. It is truly your body seeking to regulate itself. And yes, there is a reward. Sweet things are pleasant. Let's just say that. And so that actually factors into the neurochemistry, as we've talked about before, which is dopamine. And interestingly enough, whenever there's sugar present in the body, and then you also consume salt, the insulin actually contributes to a lot of inflammation, especially when it's combined with salty foods. So again, it's another chemical reaction that's occurring within the body. It's not a good or a bad thing. It is just what it is. And the other thing that I wanted to mention there is, as I said, when we get into the reward system within the body, you're talking about dopamine, the neurotransmitter dopamine. And dopamine, part of the function of dopamine, besides mood and mental focus, is also sodium and sodium regulation, and as well as kidney support. So it supports it supports the urinary tract, along with sodium. Like I said, sodium regulation. So interesting when you think about it. You're taking sugar in. You're feeling like I need to have more. I really like this. When can I have more? When it becomes obsessive like that, you're looking at a type of addiction. Is this a bad thing? Again, no. But what's interesting is that repetitive behavior is rewarding, and it's actually stimulating dopamine. That tells me right there that you're actually probably, maybe not severely low, but that would tell me that you were actually low on your dopamine levels. Because the next thing, like I say, dopamine does is it actually helps to push and regulate the sodium and help to flush the urinary tract system. So how interesting to think about the fact that you take in sugar, you're stimulating dopamine, but it's all being held into the brain, into that reward system, so it's not being utilized as it's needed throughout the rest of the body. And hence you have I don't know about you, even when I eat sugar, if I eat a large amount of anything with a lot of sugar in it, I feel bloated. I actually retain water. So I don't even have to have salt to do that. And there again, dopamine needed to push out the sodium, and in fact now you can't, because dopamine's being used in other places, so the sodium is now retained. and you have fluid buildup. So again, this isn't a good or a bad thing. It's just indicative of a chemical imbalance, and the body is seeking to regulate itself. So why crave more sugar? Well, number one, you're craving more dopamine. I mean, to be really honest with you, you're craving more dopamine. And what I find very fascinating is there is a fermentation process in the body called glycolysis that is the way the body actually takes sugars and converts them for different uses throughout the body. So part of that fermentation cycle, part of what that does is it actually recycles a chemical called BH4 that is produced by the body. It recycles it for the continuation of neurotransmitter production. So now if you're low on dopamine and you're trying to produce dopamine and you're taking in a lot of sugar, but it's not being converted properly, you're not producing the BH4 that's needed to produce the actual dopamine for yourself. I just said a lot, so I'll try to reiterate that, and if I don't make sense here, by all means let me know. If you start eating sugar and you find that you want more, or at given another time you start to crave sugar, what is that saying? It's saying that your body is actually craving dopamine, because it gives you a sense of pleasure. It's a reward. It's not a weakness. Your body's needing dopamine, and the consistent use of this particular substance helps to stimulate dopamine. It keeps dopamine in the brain, helps to regulate mood. Yes, there are crashes that come after that, but what I'm saying is you're actually helping the body to produce something that it can't ordinarily do on its own. And for those of us who have issues with the conversion of sugars within the body, that's called through glycolysis. Those sugars get converted, and part of what that does is actually recycle BH4, which is necessary for neurotransmitter production. So if your sugars aren't being converted properly, you're not producing enough BH4. More than likely, you're producing too much ammonia. The BH4 is going elsewhere, and it gets very complex. So the bottom line to all of that is the use of sugar, in whatever form that is really more about chemical restoration. It's the body saying, "Hey, I need more of this," and that's the reason why when you eat sugar, you feel more alert. You have more energy. Yes, the body's taking it because it needs it to convert it, because it's struggling to convert it, and it's struggling within that process. Now, here's an interesting thing. Another thing that dopamine does help with is it actually helps with yeast reduction. And when you're not converting sugars properly, when you're not converting sugars properly, yeast will build up. Another thing that builds up is histamine levels go up. Then from there, you have estrogen levels go up. So if you find yourself again wanting and craving these sugars and refined carbohydrates, it's really your body. It's okay. So yeast feeds off of itself. You're needing dopamine, but the dopamine isn't going throughout the rest of the body. It's staying within the brain, and so it's not functioning as it's supposed to be. And so really helping the body to reset itself and begin to produce these chemicals on its own is imperative. Does that mean that you can't ever have sugar again? Well, no. But if you can actually stimulate the body to produce the chemicals that it needs, then you can, in fact, be able to consume the foods that you like, that you might enjoy on an occasional basis. So, how do we stimulate dopamine? And so I'm going to go into a couple of things here. So one way a couple ways to stimulate dopamine, pumpkin seeds are a good idea. Walnuts would be a good idea. Avocados. These are all healthy fats. Walnuts actually help to eliminate ammonia from the body, and in turn providing more BH4 to be used for dopamine production. Pumpkin seeds contain the necessary amino acids, such as tyrosine, for the production of dopamine and norepinephrine. So those are the reasons for those particular foods. I would also encourage a B complex supplement, actually coenzymated B complex. That is beneficial for the assimilation of carbohydrates and metabolism and assimilation of carbohydrates. Some oils that actually support dopamine production are clary sage and pardon me, I just had a little flip. Geranium. Those two particular oils actually support dopamine production. Geranium is very nice when yeast is present. But there again, if you have estrogen intolerance, it might not be advisable to use geranium. In which case, if that is a factor and you're looking for something else, you could partner German chamomile, Roman chamomile, and clary sage to support the neurotransmitter production, to support that fermentation cycle, and the reduction of histamines, and as well as the elimination of yeast. In fact, you could even throw some frankincense into that particular blend and call it done. That would be an exquisite blend to make for that very reason. So therefore, now helping to reduce your sugar cravings. I'm not calling sugar or refined carbs good or bad here. This isn't a judgment call. This is merely stating this is the reason why we have so many carbohydrate issues and so many sugar issues that are mentioned to me almost on a daily basis. And because of these chemical imbalances, we walk around thinking that those with other addictions or those with mental health issues, they're the ones with chemical imbalances. And I'm proposing that every one of us has our own form of chemical imbalances, and depending on our genetic sequencing, that will determine how it manifests. And some people have sugar problems, other people smoke, other people drink alcohol. My guess is they have sugar problems also. And so it becomes this vicious cycle, and it's not about whose addiction is better than another's, and it's not about being morally weak or having no willpower. This is a very important thing to remember, that addiction, no matter what kind of addiction we're talking about, is biologically based. So again, it's really important to, if you take digestive enzymes, that's one thing I forgot to mention, with your coenzymated Bs, along with those foods that I suggested, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, and avocados. And trust me, if you don't like any of those foods, I'm not going to say that you should eat those foods, but you're welcome to contact me and pick my brain possibly for what other ideas I might suggest. So, and then between that and then, of course, the oils that I just mentioned would be a really nice way to begin to offset the, number one, the addiction, and number two, help you put down that big stick of annihilation and blame and judgment, and just realize that all you're dealing with is a body out of balance that's asking for your help. And that's what these sugar and carbohydrate issues really suggest, is that it's not that we're nutritionally deficient. It is and it isn't. It's maybe your diet isn't all that bad. You might be doing other things. You may be taking multiple vitamins, but you're still having these problems. It's nutritionally deficient because you're not getting the nutrients properly into the cells. And this is where the essential oils come in. They actually help with nutrient uptake so that you can actually produce the proper chemistry and find yourself into balance. In the meantime, like I said, also quieting that voice of judgment and accusal, and just realizing that you're not, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just simply an imbalance that's wanting to be balanced. So if you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Comment below, send me an email. I'm always here for you. And if I think of anything, I may make a notation here as well. But that's pretty much all I really had to say around this. Like I said, it kind of occurred to me that this would be something very beneficial. Um, and if you notice, that's one other thing. If you notice this in your child, I get that a lot. Children being addicted or having, these cravings. I'll use that. We don't tend to use addicted in the terms of children, but children craving sugar, and what to do about helping their child. Well, um, it's good to indulge. I mean, this goes with autism. Um, I would not encourage the use of sugars and or refined carbs until you were able to get the chemistry situated with regards to autism. If your child has a tendency to really like sugar, you might think about the chemical imbalances that this is for demonstrating. Does this mean that your child is going to turn into a full-on, somebody who goes into worse addictions? That's not my place to guess, or say for certain. I would say that I would venture out to guess that it could indicate, yes, at some point they will have some form of an addiction. So, especially if it runs in the family. And again, it's important to remember that more people have issues around addiction of some sort than we're clearly coming forward with. And if I had nothing else to say besides sugar, no matter what the addiction is, it's not a bad thing. You're not morally weak. You don't lack willpower. You are just simply dealing with an addiction. And that's why I tie this in with sugar, because the more we accept the biological challenges that we face, the more help we can give ourselves and those we love. So again, questions, comments, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye.